The Joseph Business School offers this podcast as a way to bring money, people, and resources together. For those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, you can tune in every first and third Monday of the month to hear a new wealth creation topic. Be sure to subscribe to our JBS YouTube channel and share these podcasts with your friends and family. Today on our segment, we have Tamara Dervin, a certified financial educator with a BS in accounting from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and an MBA in finance and marketing from Loyola University, Chicago. Tamara has almost 22 years of accounting, audit, and investment experience within the financial services and governmental sectors. Tamara is a senior auditor for a federal financial regulatory agency. In 2011, Tamara started Money Basics to teach others the principles of godly stewardship over their finances. Since then, Money Basics has transformed the lives of hundreds of individuals, couples, groups, and members of organizations, helping them make smarter and well-informed money management decisions. Tamara's vision is to take the stress out of managing your greatest resource, your money. Tamara's goal is to help everyone understand the basics of money management and to move them from knowledge to action. Tamara has served as a board member of the Illinois Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Financial Literacy and on the stewardship team of her very own church, Soul City Church here in Chicago. Tamara also serves as a financial literacy instructor here at the Joseph Business School, where she teaches the Budgeting Boot Camp workshop. Please help me welcome to the segment, Miss Tamara Dervin.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Jill.
Hi, Tamara, and welcome to our segment.
Thank you.
Money Monday audience, we told you for 2020, we are taking things to a whole nother level. We have a live studio audience here with us today, and they are pumped more than ever. You're here to give us the scoop on all things budget. Can you tell us a bit about your personal story and how you created Money Basics?
Well, I created Money Basics in 2011, and it really developed out of my passion for financial literacy. My thought process was if people just had the information to be financially literate, then that they would be financially literate. I believe that my passion, God started to do some things with my passion to really craft and help me to develop my purpose, but what I believe taking me through some life situations that actually kind of rocked my financial life. I sit here in this seat today as a solo parent and a widow. If you would have talked to me 5 years ago, I would have never planned, imagined that I would be sitting in this seat. But going through those life situations has prepared me from an experience perspective to actually help and empower people. Yes, I have a degree in accounting. Yes, I have a master's in finance and marketing, but the combination of that education experience with life experience has empowered me to pursue purpose and empower people from a financial literacy perspective. And I do it because I love it.
Wow. And so specifically, I know that you're very passionate about budgeting.
Yes.
And so can you explain to our Money Monday audience, what is a budget and why is it important to budget?
It's extremely important to budget. People don't like budgets because they feel like a budget is a constricting thing. They believe budgets are bad, but budgets are really your best friend. Your budget is really the foundation of your financial house. Mm-hmm. It's your tool to help you be a good steward of the resources that God has entrusted to you.
Wow.
So it's a tool to help you reach your goals and be a good steward.
Mm. And so you use the word good steward. So is budgeting a biblical concept?
Yes, it is. People don't think that budgeting is in the Bible, but I believe when in Luke 14:28, when it talks about Jesus saying, those that intended to build a tower, do you not sit down first and count the costs? I believe that Jesus was talking to us about budgeting, sitting down first before every month starts to determine if you have enough money to do everything that you set out to do in that month. I believe that in Luke 14:28, Jesus is talking about budgeting, sitting down and counting the costs before you start each month.
Got it. And so, what do you recommend for a person who may feel like I start a budget, sometimes I fall off the wagon, I create another budget, and I fall back again? What is your recommendation for a person like that?
I recommend that if you feel like you have, first of all, I want to tell you, never give up.
Mm, that's good.
Going through this financial journey, you'll have highs, you'll have lows, but never give up. Never give up on pursuing the financial life, which is freedom that God has for you. So no matter if you make a mistake, no matter if you fall off from budgeting, get back on that wagon and continue to do it.
That's good. And so, most people would say, or they think that when they have a lot of resources, meaning they have a lot of money, they don't have to budget. And so, can you talk to that individual who may have abundance in finances and as far as in their bank accounts, but they have not thought about budgeting? Can you talk about that stewardship of why they should?
Well, I will say this, if God has blessed you tremendously, that is an amazing thing. So he's really, I feel like, called you into a deeper place of stewardship, making sure that you are managing what he's called you to do in the best, highest use way. So sometimes when we're in a place of abundance, sometimes we can tend to overspend,
Yes.
and not fulfill the vision that we're being called to fulfill. So even if you are in a state of abundance, I would challenge you to really sit down and examine your financial goals. Sit down and say, God, these resources that you've given to me, you've given them to me for purpose. God has empowered us and given us resources for purpose, not just for pleasure. Yes, we'll have some pleasure, but we are called to a purpose. So what has God called you to do with those resources? Because if you're saying, okay, I have money, I don't need to, budget, maybe God is calling you into deeper generosity.
Yeah.
Are you at your highest level of giving potential? Always ask people, are you at your giving potential? They're saying, I have a lot of money. Are you at your savings potential? Are you at the potential where you're supposed to be investing and multiplying the resources that are entrusted to you? Because I'm telling you, a lot of times we tend to overspend when we don't budget. And that's whether you have a lot or a little.
And so, speaking of overspending, I'm sure a person like you probably have resources and tools that you utilize in order to help you stay on that budget. Can you talk a bit about what are some of your favorite resources and tools that you use?
So I will say this as it relates to resources. You do need a resource. Personal finance is personal. Every tool, every resource doesn't work for everyone, but there are resources that work for the majority. I recommend, first of all, for people to figure out what type of budgeter are you? Are you a traditional budgeter, or are you an electronic budgeter? Are you a pen and paper person? Are you a screen person? But the key is to budget. So the first thing I recommend to people is figure out which one you are and determine what resources you need. I have a tool. We're going to talk about it a little later, but I have a tool that's more of a pen and paper tool that you can use to actually budget, create a spending plan, create a plan to get out of debt. But there are electronic tools. So some of them are mint.com, which is a free website, free app that you can actually manage your monthly budget.
Okay.
There is a website called Every Dollar that Dave Ramsey created. It's an app and also a website platform that you can use, and that's also free.
Okay.
And then there is another resource that I like. It's called youneedabudget.com. And theirs is a paid platform, but they also have a free trial. And I will say that I am a person that's both. I do paper and I do electronic, but both work. You just have to figure out which tools, which resources work best for you.
You know what, Tamara? Speaking of budget, I think sometimes, typically at the beginning of the year, everybody's creating visions and they're even beginning their budgeting process. How often should a person look at their budget?
Oh, that's a good question. So you need to look at your budget every month. Some people create their budget and leave it, but that's not even how our life works. You create your budget. Let's say you're creating your budget now at the beginning of the year. Each month, before that month starts, you should be examining your budget, because each month presents something new, something different. And it's not something major. It might be an event that you want to go to. It may be a dinner with a friend. It may be birthdays. It may be weddings. It may be holidays that are coming up that you need to incorporate those expenses. So your budget should be examined every month. commit an hour of time. And it's actually self-care to actually do your budget, your finances. Create that hour, the hour and a half to actually look at your budget and determine what do you need to complete that month. So let's say we're in January, now we're in February now. So sit down and figure out what your budget is to make sure that you have enough money to do everything that you're desiring to do.
You know what I like that you said? Taking care of your budget is a form of self-care.
Yes.
I think that that is absolutely awesome.
Yes.
Can you talk about specifically for a person who maybe is on salary, they have a specific amount of money that they can designate towards their budget because their income is kind of set. Well, what about that person who may be an entrepreneur or a person who's commission based or even hourly? Sometimes their pay may fluctuate. And so how do they go about itemizing that specific line of income? What would you recommend that they do?
I recommend that if you are commission based, I know a lot of people that are in real estate and are entrepreneurs and other various fields, that you have cyclical income. Your income is not the same amount every month as someone that gets paid a specific paycheck. What I would recommend is first examine what your expenses are, what your basic living expenses are, and then do an average of what your income is. Once you get the average of your income, then you know what your baseline is that you need to be hitting every month. Some months, let's say you make more than your average. What should you do with that money? You should save it. So if there are months that you are beneath that amount, then you always have something to fill the gap. But do an analysis. I would say for an entrepreneur, a commission-based person, an hourly person, that it will be even more imperative for you to sit down and do an analysis of what you need to cover your monthly expenses. So you know what your money goal is, you'll know what your income target is, and you know how, if you have more or you have a little less, you know what you need to be doing during those months. But analysis is key.
That's good. And so even thinking about our expenses are variable. You know, they fluctuate month to month as well. And so when you're creating your budget, do you also take an average of those as well?
I'm so glad you asked that question. That is why it is key to do your budget every month, because things like gas bill, electric bill, based on where you live, they can fluctuate based on the month. So the month prior, I would say maybe a week before that month starts, go through all of your bills for the next month and plug those into your budget so that you know exactly how much you are spending in each area, so that there's not any surprise as to, okay, whether I have enough or whether I have more than enough. Every month budget.
Okay.
Now you can do, when you're initially doing your budget, just to kind of do your construct, you can do an average to see, okay, this is how much I average spend, you know, on utilities or a phone bill. But you have a lot of expenses that are fixed, but that's why it's key to do your budget every month.
And so thinking about that as well, after we've averaged out our income, we've averaged out our expenses, what about those miscellaneous items? Like, where do they fall in with the budget?
So a lot of miscellaneous items are actually captured in the budget. It's that we don't track them. Tracking your spending is key. We spend money on typically the same amount of things every month, whether it's food, going to the store, going out, entertainment. We spend money on various categories that actually have a category. Miscellaneous probably should be very small. We just have to really pay attention to name our expenses and go back and track to see how we spent our money.
Got it.
But miscellaneous, you would put an average and say, okay, this is what I want to spend on miscellaneous things. One of the things, the ways we call it in the book is your below pocket. But that should not be a huge pocket. There should not be a huge balance in that, because really most everything has a name to it.
Got it. And so what are some things that typically wreck our budget? Like, I'm thinking, for me, subscriptions. Can you tell of other things that may be blowing our budget that we don't think about?
So we are in a consumer environment. Like, everything is coming at us to make our lives easier. So a lot of things are making our lives easier, but it's actually increasing our budget. So you name one for you: subscriptions, whether it's television programming, music, television programming, Some people, Target is a budget buster. Going into Target, you go in for one thing and you come out with a whole basket.
I think that's every lady, right?
You spent
All the ladies.
$100. You spent $100 at Target. So
Okay.
Target can be a budget buster. But there's various, I would say food is typically a budget buster for people because they don't track how much they swipe, whether it's for coffee, whether it's for lunch, whether it's for dinner, whether it's, going out, or just food can be a budget buster. Gas can be a budget buster. As our gas prices fluctuate, gas can be a budget buster. So that's why it's critical to go back and look at how much you spent and to track it.
Got it. And so what do you recommend for our couples? Because I'm sure that there's a family that's out there and they're like, okay, well, it's a husband, there's a 2-income household, but there's traditionally one set of bills. So what recommendations do you give couples when it comes to budgeting?
The key thing with couple is to get on the same page, to have the same purpose, the same vision in mind when you are managing your resources. In Amos 3:3, it says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? So if you all may be different, I told you guys that I was a widow. When my husband was alive, he was different. He was more of a spender. I was more of a saver. But we had to come together for the sake of the mission, which is to live in a state of financial freedom.
Yes. That's good. And so based on our current booming economy right now, is there anything that we should be paying attention to that are some financial tips that you can provide our audience with?
The first thing I want to say is, yes, Jill, the economy is booming. If you look at the markets, they are at an all-time high right now. But what I would say to people is to rally your troops. A friend of mine calls his money troops, okay? Like they're armies, and he literally names them armies, battalions, all of that. But rally your troops, because right now may be a time that God is calling you to save. Because if the market, now we'll say this, there are cycles to every economy. There are cycles of economy booming, and it's a cycle of recession. Now we've been on a high note for about 8 years, 9 years now. So we are due for a slight recession. Now, I'm not saying that the recession, when it comes, will affect you negatively. But what I'm saying is that you should be prepared for the recession. Couple things that you can do to be prepared for it when a recession comes is to make sure you have an emergency savings. That's the first thing you need to do. Second thing you should do is to make sure that you have little to no debt. When you don't have debt, when things come into your life, it's not a big deal because you're not strapped down by debt. Once you pay off your debt, take that money that you were paying off debt and increase your savings. I will tell you, a lot of people, if you look back at the last recession, the housing market busting, a lot of people, when they were prepared for a recession, actually boomed and multiplied their money during the recession.
Wow.
So that would actually be a buying opportunity. Like I talked about a friend rallying the troops. One of my friends is literally just gathering funds so that when the market does go down, they see that as a buying opportunity to multiply their money.
Good.
Multiplying your money in the stock market because prices will be low. Multiplying your money in real estate. A lot of times, the last time people were able to scoop up properties, whether they were to live in them, sell, flip them later, it's going to be a buying opportunity. So my suggestion now is to really pay attention to what's going on in the economy and to be prepared. Not just be prepared to seal yourself off from what may happen adversely, but if you're thriving financially, it will be an opportunity for you to increase your own household and to help and bless others.
That's good. And so, audience, I want us to pay attention to something that she just mentioned. Because they did budget, it created an opportunity. So when the markets were at an all-time low, they were able to take advantage, get in the market at a lower rate, and then multiply their money. It reminds me of the scripture in Genesis 1:28, where the Bible tells us to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue. Are you being fruitful? Meaning fruitful has a lot to do with your own financial stewardship. After you've been fruitful, are you thinking of ways to multiply what God has given you? We have a couple studio audience questions. Let's take it to our audience.
So I actually have a statement. So I'm always giving, and when I'm not giving, I feel guilty if I'm spending my money on something else. And in turn, I give a lot and it actually throws off my budget. So, how do I deal with that?
So, the first thing I want to say to you is, have you taken your financial plan, your budget to God? Have you asked God, God, how do you want me to allocate the resources that you have entrusted to me? How much do you want me to give? How much do you want me to save? How much do you want me to live on? And I believe that when you take that plan to God and say, God, how do you want me to allocate that? And He speaks into your financial situations and says, this is how much I want you to give, save, and this is how much I want you to live on. That unlocks a sense of freedom on your live side, where you know that you're in the will of God, you're in the plan of God to make sure that you're doing and managing the resources that He's entrusted to you well. So you won't feel like, okay, I'm giving too much, because you sound like I'm giving a lot, I'm not, and it is having an impact on my living situation. That's not what God has called us to. He's not called us to give ourselves and neglect the house that we've created. Now, He has called us to give and do it wisely. So that's why I said, seek God on what you're supposed to give, how much you're supposed to save, and what you're supposed to live on. And when you get into that vein, I believe that you will be blessed, you will be strengthened, you won't be stressed out, and your financial house will not be in shambles. It will be actually strengthened.
I have a question as it relates to 401k savings. You said if our company matches up to 5%, that we should give up to 5%. Is that the max that we could give for saving in the 401k? Or like, could we give more than that?
Yes. So the answer is yes, yes, yes. So with 401k, I always tell people, if you're not doing 401k, if you haven't started investing in your 401k plan, which is for your retirement, then at least get to whatever your company is matching quickly. Do that first, because if you're not investing as much as they're matching, so let's say your company is investing, matching 5%, if you're not contributing at least 5%, then you're leaving free money on the table. So we don't want to leave any free money on the table. So at least get to the match. But no, the maximum that you can invest in your 401k based on IRS rules is $19,500 this year. So that's how much you can invest. So I always tell people, depending upon how much you make, at least try to invest at least 15% up to the maximum amount.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I have a question. My son is 13 years old, and I want to know if there are any resources out there based on his age in order to educate him about finances, about how to invest on the stock market. Is something that he can start from the ground, some kind of material that is at his age. How to educate him, how to get into the stock market, savings, and that kind of environment.
That's a great question. So there are a couple resources that I recommend. One resource is a very simple thing that you can do at home to teach your kids about money and budgeting, is the 3-jar method, to teach them how to give, to save, and to live. Is to give them 3 jars. One jar will be the give jar, one jar will be the save jar, and one jar will be the spend jar. I actually did this with my son. He created 3 jars, and you allow them to actually put in different amounts in the jars. And you can give them an allowance, or when they get money, they can use this method to actually allocate their money. So that can teach them the basics of budgeting and setting aside something to be generous to others, to save something for later, and then they have their fun money to buy whatever they want. As far as platforms, there is your son, you said your son is 13.
Yes.
There's a great platform called Current that can actually also teach them the value and the principles of budgeting in a real life scenario, where you as a parent can monitor the account, but it actually talks to them and teaches them how to actually give, save, and then spend. The money will be in a savings account, but it teaches them how to give to charitable organizations. There's a method in there, a mechanism in there that allows them to give to specific charitable organizations, also save in an account, and then they have their money that they can spend. And you can monitor how they're doing with those mechanisms. From a stock market perspective, I like the platform called Stockpile, and that's Stockpile. And Stockpile really is an amazing platform to teach kids about not just being consumers, but being owners. And it teaches them how to invest on their level, from the perspective of they know what they buy, they know what they wear, they know what they use with the gaming. And the platform is very user friendly. When you go on, you can look at topics like gaming. So kids are into gaming. They're into, NBA 2K. My son is into NBA 2K. So he was easily able to go on the platform, see NBA 2K. The name of the company that owns NBA 2K is not NBA 2K. It's called 2K Interactive or something like that. So he was able to go on that platform, look for the everyday things that he uses or he sees that his friends use, and pick a stock that he knows I use, other people are using. So this company might be a good company, and actually look at information, financial information. Now you might say, okay, but what if I don't know, the financials or in that, things like that? But Stockpile actually has some educational resources on their app that actually teaches kids what is a stock, what is a mutual fund, how do I get into the stock market, what should I be looking at a company if I want to invest. So they have some tools to look at that. Now, the other resource that I really like just for overall money management to teach kids from a biblical perspective about money is Dave Ramsey. Financial Peace has a Financial Peace Junior version of their resources. His daughter created a whole curriculum for youth, and it's an amazing resource to teach your kids how to manage their money from a biblical perspective.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking that question.
Tamara, thank you so much for answering our studio audience questions today.
Thank you guys for asking questions.
For those of you who are in our studio audience today, there is a special blessing for each of you. Tamara is blessing our live studio audience with a copy of her Money Basics Budgeting Workbook. Tamara, how can our audience reach you?
You can reach me via my website, moneybasicsonline.com, and that's moneybasics with an S, online.com. You can also follow me on social media at Money is Basic. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For those of you who were not in our studio audience today, don't worry, you are not left out on this treat. You can definitely go to moneybasicsonline.com and purchase Tamara's book on her website. Again,
moneybasicsonline.com.
Thank you, Tamara, for coming in on our segment. We appreciate you taking the time to teach us how to budget, and I'm grateful for that one tip. A budget is done monthly, not just annually.
Yes, thank you for having me, Jill.
Thank you. We want to hear from you. If there's a wealth creation topic you'd like for us to cover, email us at moneymondays@jbs.edu. Remember, in 2020, we are building for wealth, and we're bringing a team of experts to help get you there. Submit your questions in advance to moneymondays@jbs.edu. Don't forget to join us every first and third Monday of the month at noon for a new topic on financial literacy and wealth creation. Subscribe to the JBS YouTube channel. And as always, I'm your host, Jill Thompson, and I look forward to seeing you prosper.